ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारणं परमानन्दं माधवम्। Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining. So we will resume from verse 41. So these are the continuing prayers by so these are the continuing prayers by the various participants of the second iteration of the yajna by Daksha after he has been given his life back by Lord Shiva. So different personalities are praying according to their moods, and we see both the external and the internal purports of the prayers. So we'll resume from verse 41. Agni Ruvacha Yatejasam Shushamid Teja Avyam Vahe Swadharajya Shiktam Tam Yagyam Pancha Vidham Cha Panchabhi Shvishtam Yajurbhi Pranatosmi Yagyam. The fire god said, "My dear Lord, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you because by your favor I am as luminous as blazing fire, and I accept the offerings mixed with butter and offered in sacrifice. The 5 kinds of offerings, according to the Yajurveda, are all your different energies, and you're worshipped by the 5 kinds of Vedic hymns. Sacrifice means you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead." So essentially what the fire god is saying, that I carry the sacrifices to you, but I'm simply a messenger. So one may write a very elevated letter and give it to the postman, and the postman will dutifully carry it. Does not mean that the postman knows and understands the content of the letter. So Agnidev is making the same point, that I carry all these oblations to you. I do not know the true relevance of these offerings. And then the implicit criticism here is that if I do not know who is so intimately connected with carrying these oblations to you, then how can those who are the performers of the sacrifice know? So this is criticism that is essentially directed towards the Karmkandis who perform yagyas and offer oblations. So Agnidev is saying, if I don't know, they don't know also. But he is grateful for his own position, that somehow by the mercy of the Lord, he has got this position of carrying oblations from the offerer to the personification. So he says that you are yagyam to Krishna, that you are the personification of sacrifice, and you're the yagyam. You're also the protector of the sacrifice. And then he says Panchavidham. 5 kinds of sacrifices. Srila Prabhupada talks about it in the purport. And Panchabi. Panchabi are the 5 kinds of mantras. So Prabhupada says that as stated in the Upanishads, fire, the altar, the auspicious full moon, the period of 4 months called Chaturmasya, and the sacrificial animals, and the beverage called Soma are the necessary requisites. So these are the 5 actually types of yagyas. So the fire is called Agnihotra, and then the altar or the full moon is called Darsha, Paurmanas. The 4 months is called Chaturmas. The sacrificial animals is called Pashu, and the beverage is Soma. And then there are 5 kinds of mantras also that depending on the syllables. The 4 syllables ones are the Ashravya and Astu, and the 2 syllable ones are Yajeti, the 5 syllable ones are Ye Yajmaha, and the 2 syllable ones are Vasat. So Vishnu Chakravarti quotes from Satpat Brahmana to talk about these 5 kinds of sacrifices, and Srila Prabhupada also comments upon it. Then he says that Prabhupada says that for the deliverance of those who are materially conditioned, performing yajna following the rules and regulations for the life is recommended. Right? Same point is made in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada says that as Lord Vishnu appeared at the Daksh Yajna long ago, Lord Chaitanya has appeared in this age to accept our Sankirtan Yajna. So very sweet and potent comparison. They're just like Lord Vishnu was appearing to accept the oblations of the Agnihotra. Similarly, Lord Chaitanya has appeared to accept the oblations of Sankirtan Yajna. Prabhupada is making the point that they have the same potency, actually high, because there is lesser chances of trutis. Verse 42, Deva Ucho Pura Kalpayasva Kramudari Kritya Vikritam Tvameva Dayastasmin Shalila Uragedrash Adhishayane Puman Sheshashithe Hidi Vimshita Dhyatma Padvahi Saeva Takshnor Yapati Charsi Vrityanavashinaha. The demigod said, Dear Lord, formerly when there was a devastation, you conserved all the different energies of material manifestation. At that time, all the inhabitants of the higher planets, represented by such liberated souls as Sanak, were meditating on you by philosophical speculation. You are therefore the original person, and you rest in water devastation on the bed of Shesha snake. Now today you are visible to us, who are all your servants. Please give us protection. So the prayers of the Devas to Lord Vishnu is that you are the protector, maintainer, and destroyer. Right? They talk about all 3 aspects. And that there was the devastation, and there was the position of the Lord who was protecting them even at the time of devastation. So this is their prayer, that you are the protector, maintainer, and destroyer of this universe. So please protect us, your servants who can see you. The criticism here is, which is directed towards the Gyanis and towards the sacrificers, that my Lord, you are known by your servants and not by others. So there is an oblique reference to Sanak, who represents Gyan. So they say that Sanakadi, they were meditating on you by philosophical speculation, by Gyan, but we can see you. So through other paths, they may be able to conceptualize you, but we can see you. And of course, they're talking about the partial destruction, right? Because this is when at the end of the day of Brahma, when there is a partial destruction, then the universe it enters into the womb of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and then again it appears. Prabhupada talks about a significant point in the purport. He says that in this verse, the demigods say, "We are all your servants. Bhritya, give us your protection." So Prabhupada brings forth this point that the demigods depend on Lord Vishnu for protection. You'll never see Lord Vishnu praying to the demigods saying, "Give me your protection." But there are many, many instances where we see the Devas praying. In the Bhagavatam and in the other Puranas, we see the Devas praying for protection. So Prabhupada says that's why the Bhagavad Gita condemns the worship of the demigods, because there is no need of it. Because if they are getting protection from Krishna, better to go straight to Krishna and get absolute protection. Okay, verse 43. Gandharva uchu am shamshastadeva marichadaya ite brahmendradya devagana rudrapurogaha kridabandam vishwam idam yasya vibhuman tasmai nityam nath namaste karavam. The Gandharvas said, "Dear Lord, all the demigods, including Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and Indra, along with Maharishi and the other great sages, are only differentiate parts and parcels of your body. You are the Supreme Almighty Great. The whole creation is just like a plaything for you. We always accept you as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we offer our respectful obeisances unto you." So the prayers here is from the Gandharvas is that while we were entering the assembly of Daksha, we were praising him. But actually, we should praise you alone, since all the others are amshas, that they are portions of your portions. And that is why all our respects to you. So the criticism here, which is essentially directed at everybody, is that those who think that they are lords are not. So this is directed to Brahma and Shiva, basically to everybody, that there is only one Lord, which is Lord Vishnu. If anybody thinks they are Lord, then they are mistaken. And they're lamenting their own understanding. That because the Gandharvas by profession, well, more not by profession, but by their constitutional position, they glorify. They are singers, and they are brought to glorify. So when the yajna of Prajapati Daksha was being done, then the understanding is that they were glorifying Daksha, they were glorifying Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, other exalted people. But then now they say that they're all just differentiated paths, right? They're saying Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, Indra, Marichi, great sages. They're all your paths only. So Prabhupada says that in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said, Ekale Ishvara Krishna Arasa Bhritya. So this is in Adi Lila, chapter 5, verse 142. So Prabhupada said this means that Krishna alone is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all others, even the Vishnu Tattvas, and certainly the living entities, are his servitors. So what does it mean? That the worship of Krishna includes the worship of all the parts and the parcels. Just as watering the roots of a tree waters all the branch, twigs, leaves, and flowers. This is a verse that Srila Prabhupada likes to quote a lot. This actually appears later on in the 4th canto, Yathataror Mula Nischena, in the 31st chapter. That same analogy. By watering the roots, everything in the tree is watered. By worshipping Lord Vishnu, everybody in the universe is pleased. Okay, verse 44. Vidyadhara uchu tvam mayartham adipadya kalevarasmin kritva mamaham iti durmati rutpahe swahi kshipopyasad vishyalalasatmamoham yushmat kathamrita nishvek udvayodayasat. The Vidyadhars say, my dear Lord, this human form of body is meant for attaining the highest perfectional objective. But impelled by your external energy, the living entity misidentifies himself with this body and with the material energy. And therefore, influenced by Maya, he wants to become happy by material enjoyment. He is misled and always attracted by temporary illusory happiness. But your transcendental activities are so powerful that if one engages in hearing and chanting such topics, he can be delivered from illusion. So the prayer here is that a materially absorbed person can be liberated simply by hearing Krishna Katha. So they say one engages in hearing and chanting. These are the two things they mention, which is Shravana Kirtan of Krishna Katha. The criticism which is directed to the Gyanis is that they tend to reject the pastimes, the Leela. So the Gyanis tend to reject the Puranas in favor of the Upanishads or the Sutras. Whereas the Puranas are saturated with so many loving pastimes. And because they reject it, they do not get the freedom from illusion that even the less intelligent can get simply by Shravan Kirtan. So Prabhupada says the word Yusmat Kathamritan Nishveka means those who engage in relishing the nectar of the topics of your Lordship. And Prabhupada says that he talks about Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. The Bhagavad Gita is the words spoken by Krishna, and the Bhagavatam are words spoken about Krishna and his devotees. So Prabhupada then says, for those who engage in the preaching of these two Vedic literatures, it is very easy to get out of the illusory conditioned life imposed upon by Maya. The illusion is that the conditioned soul does not try to understand his spiritual identity. He is more interested in his spiritual body, which is only a flash and which will be finished as soon as time is designated. Lord Chaitanya advocated a process wherein everyone may remain in the present position without change, but simply hear from the proper authority. This actually is a quote from 10.14.3. Then later on, Prabhupada says that Lord Chaitanya advised everyone to spread the word of Krishna. This is Madhya Leela 7:128. Jare Dekho Tare Bol, Krishna Upadesh. It says, all of you become spiritual masters. Your duty is simply to talk to whomever you meet of Krishna or give the instructions. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness is operating for this purpose. We do not ask anyone to first change his position and then come in. Instead, we invite everyone to come with us and simply chant. So Prabhupada is glorifying the position of preaching, and he's also explaining the motto of ISKCON, that it is completely aligned to the instructions of Mahaprabhu and to the instructions found in the Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada would make the statement all the time that ISKCON is bona fide because it is completely aligned to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And then he would quote these verses: Bhagavatam 10:14-3, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 7:128, and 11th canto to establish, because more than in the West, there was criticism of ISKCON in India itself, where they were criticized on various things, that these people are singing and dancing, they don't understand the rigor of Vedas, or these people can't understand Sanskrit, or the antecedents, by birth they are not qualified to do deity worship. And Prabhupada had strong scriptural proof to validate that. So the other point that Prabhupada makes, also important point, is that taking Krishna consciousness does not mean that you give up everything. Okay, that's what 10:14-3 is. This is of course praised by Lord Brahma to Krishna, and Lord Brahma says that that while remaining in your current position, those who take to Krishna consciousness, they will be liberated. And that's what the position of ISKCON is. Even though earlier on, most of the people would join and become brahmacharis, they would move into the temple. But Prabhupada always had this thing that you don't have to give up your job, you don't have to give up your family. If you're married, then your family takes to Krishna consciousness with you. So Prabhupada says this is the sublime mission of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. Okay, verse 45. Brahmana uchuhu tvam katus tvam haves tvam huta saha swayam tvam himantra samit darbhapatranicha tvam sadasya trvijo dampati devata agnihotram swada sumajayam pashuhu. The Brahmana said, dear Lord, you are sacrifice personified. You are the offering of clarified butter. You are the fire. You are the chanting of the Vedic hymns by which the sacrifice is conducted. You are the fuel, you are the flame, you are the kushagrash, you are the sacrificial pots. You are the priest who perform the yajna. You are the demigods headed by Indra, and you are the sacrificial animal. Everything that is sacrificed is you or your energy. So very similar to the prayer by Agni, for obvious reasons, that the mood is very, very, very simple, very similar. And the Brahmanas, their prayer goes into 3 verses. But essentially the point they're making is that what is it that we sacrifice to Krishna? Nothing, because everything is already Krishna. Right? So they're saying that you're the butter, you're the fire, you're the Vedic hymns, you are the sacrifice, you're kushagrass. So all the components of a sacrifice are already Krishna. That's why I say everything that is sacrificed is you or your energy. Nothing really belongs to the sacrificer. Okay, next verse. Tvam puragam rasaya moho sukaro damastraya padminim varanendro yatha stuyamano nadal leelaya yogabhi vijatha trayi gatrayagya kratu. Dear Lord, O personified Vedic knowledge, in the last millennium, long, long ago, when you appeared as a great boar incarnation, you picked up the earth from the water, as an elephant picks up a lotus flower from a lake. When you vibrated transcendental sound in the gigantic form of a boar, the sound was accepted as sacrificial hymn. And great sages like Sanak meditated upon it and offered praise for your glorification. So, the Brahmanas are saying that we offer respects to you, who is the personification of sacrifice. And essentially, Varadev is considered to be the personification of sacrifice, because it is said that when he spoke, then his speech was the Vedic hymns. And the Brahmanas all over the universe, they responded to it by chanting Vedic hymns in the glory of the Lord. The implied criticism here is that the followers of Lord Shiva have become obstacles in this sacrifice. So the point they're making is that by becoming an obstacle in the sacrifice, they're actually attacking you because you are sacrifice. So the sacrifice is not being performed by the sacrificer, because they're making this point in the previous verse that you are everything. You are the sacrifice and the performer. So because Veerbhadra and his followers, they desecrated the sacrifice, which is non-different from you, they were actually offensive towards you. So they address the Lord here as Trigatra. So Trigatra essentially means that, so many times the Vedas are referred as Triveda and Trigatra. So Trigatra refers to the fact that there are three main poetic styles in the Vedas. Then the Rig Vedas, they have a particular poetic style which is sung as hymns. The Sam Veda has a more musical style that is sung like a song. And the Yajur Veda is mostly prose. Prose means there is no meter to it. It is just spoken. And the Athar Veda is a combination of all these three. So that's why the Vedas are referred as Traikatra. It's also referred to as Triveda because sometimes the Atharva Veda is excluded. And the reason that it is excluded is because it mostly contains details about household rituals, about how to cast spells, about how to bring ghosts and spirits under control, more tamasic and more mundane. So there are Brahmins who don't read the Atharva Veda. So that's why they're called Trivedas. And many times the references to the Vedas is Triveda, because the other three Vedas, they are focused more on either the demigods or Lord Vishnu. Or another way of looking at it is that because the Atharva Veda does not have a unique poetic style, so it's neither hymns nor musical nor prose, but it's a combination of all three, then it is excluded. So in this verse, the Brahmins who are studying the Vedas are saying that worshipping the form of the Lord is equivalent to the studying of the Vedas. Or if you flip it around, studying of the Vedas is equivalent to worshipping the Lord. So, for instance, Rupa Goswami, he says that Prithu Maharaj has the position of perfecting his life by engaging in deity worship, Archana. And the same Prithu Maharaj we see is also glorifying Krishna Katha. So we'll read in 4th canto, chapter 20th, where he is glorifying that how simply by hearing, he says that I want the benediction of 1 million years so that I may hear. So in the Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani, Shivaram Swami, he explains that deity worship increases one's interest to hear about the Supreme Lord, and it increases one's capacity to chant about the Lord. So by the virtue of deity worship, we see that the capacity of Prithu Maharaj increased to the point that he's praying for millions of years to hear about the glories of the Lord. So the point that is being made over here is that there is no exclusiveness of the process. One process helps and supports another and is helped and supported by another. So Prabhupada talks in the purport that anyone who engages in the worship of the deity or the form of the Lord in the temple is understood to be studying all the Vedas 24 hours a day. Simply by decorating the deities of the Lord, Radha and Krishna in the temple, where many minutely studies the injunctions of the Vedas. Even a neophyte devotee who simply engages in the worship of the devotee, it is understood that he is in direct touch with the purport of the Vedic knowledge. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Vedescha Sarve Ram Eva Veda, 15:15, the purport of the Vedas is to understand him, Krishna. One who worships and serves Krishna directly has understood the truth about the Vedas. So, nice purport for pujaris. Sometimes people say that pujaris have a more neophyte position because they don't understand the scriptures well enough to preach and not good enough to do temple management, not potent enough to do book distribution. So you do deity worship. And in the earlier days in ISKCON, it was actually people would start. So there was some kind of a hierarchy. People would start as book distributors. Those who distributed the most books were the most potent devotees. If they were not very good at that, then Harinam Sankirtan. Then they would basically go out in the town, do kirtan, and that was the second. If they could not do that, then temple management. Become the temple commander, the temple president, running everything. If they couldn't even do that, then the temple president would say, you do deity worship. I was talking to one Prabhupada disciple, and he was saying that one point he was feeling a little discouraged in his spirituality, and it was showing in his book distribution. So his scores were going down, and the temple president called him and said that if you don't get your scores back up, then next month, deity worship for you. So the devotee said, I got so terrified. He said, I would go early in the morning, and for 12 hours I would distribute books, got my scores back up again. And the temple president said, okay. So, and I was, he was also laughing. He said those were different times. Prabhupada clearly here states that one who is doing deity worship, he is studying the scriptures. No difference. You don't have to be a Sanskrit scholar. Similarly, one who is listening to Krishna Katha, he is doing deity worship. Prabhupada makes this point also in another place, that if you're carefully listening to Krishna Katha, then you're decorating the deity in your mind. So the main point is that all the processes are synonymous. They are there because people have different propensities, but the underlying drive is sincerity. That the person may be distributing millions of books, but if there's no sincerity, then the process is actually counter-effective. Because there were cases of people who would distribute a lot of books, and they would become extremely proud. There's a Mataji who was actually a top distributor of books, and she went to her Guru Maharaj, and she herself said that I've been the top distributor in ISKCON for so many years, and I'm beginning to feel pride. So what should I do? And then a spiritual master said that you can do one of two things. You can give up your pride, or you can wait for Krishna to take it away. Generally, when Krishna takes things away, it's a little painful. So better for you to give it up yourself. And then it's a sharing of realization. Then she continued book distribution, but she took up other services also that basically helped to develop more humility. Okay, next verse, 47. Swaprasitvam asmakamakankshatam darshanam te pariprastha sakarmanam krityamane nirvi namni yagye sate yagya vignaha kashamyanti tasmai namaha. Dear Lord, we were awaiting your audience because we have been unable to perform the yagyas according to the Vedic rituals. We pray unto you, therefore, we pray unto you, therefore, to be pleased with us. Simply by chanting your holy name, one can surpass all obstacles. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you in your presence. So this is continued praise by the Brahmanas. They're saying that if chanting your name destroys obstacles, then how much more will your very, very presence destroy? So the criticism is again towards the followers of Lord Shiva who destroyed the sacrifice. But they're saying that those people destroyed the sacrifice, but your name and your presence is now making it complete. So this is what is known as Kaimutya Nyaya. Kaimutya is a what if. That if this can achieve so much, then something 100 times more powerful can achieve a lot more. Right? So we see in, or we will see 10th canto, Bhagavatam. So Parishad Maharaj, when he is hearing about Krishna's pastime, and then Sukdev Goswami talks about Putna kidnapping baby Krishna. And Parishit Maharaj becomes very, very anxious. Now, this is in the past, so he knows Krishna is all right. But as a devotee, he becomes very concerned. What's going to happen to Krishna now that this great, huge demon has kidnapped him? And then Sukdev Goswami, in order to reassure him, he says that simply by chanting the name of Krishna, everything becomes auspicious. What to speak of his personal presence? So he assures him that if Krishna's name can destroy all kinds of obstacles, then there Krishna is present himself. So what kind of a threat can Putna put to Krishna? So that's his way of reassuring. Again, in the 8th canto, we see that Vamandev, after Bali Maharaj's yagya was stopped, so Vamandev orders Shukracharya, who is very, very learned, and he says that what are the kind of discrepancies that were done in this yagya, and how can they be remediated? So then Shukracharya, he chants the famous word, mantras, tantras, chidram cha, that all kinds of discrepancies can be corrected simply by chanting the name of the Lord. So he's making this point to Vamandev that there is no question of any discrepancy in the yagya of Bali Maharaj. Because just by your name, all discrepancies can be rectified. Now you're present here, you're personally. So what is the question of any discrepancy? So the Brahmins are making this point that just by the presence of Lord Vishnu, any past discrepancies in the Vedas that were caused by the followers of Lord Shiva has been rectified. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, he says that Shiva's followers could not do any harm to the prosecution of the sacrificial process. There is a saying that when Krishna protects someone, no one can do him harm. And when Krishna wants to kill someone, no one can protect him. So this is actually an old Bengali saying. Rakhe Krishna mare ke, mare Krishna rakhe ke. Prabhupada uses that quite a bit. And then he says that the vivid example is Ravan. That Ravan was devotee of Lord Shiva, but Lord Ram killed him. And there's the pastime of Banasur also. So Srila Prabhupada quotes this to indicate that the position of Krishna is superior to the position of Lord Shiva or anybody else. So Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that all this apparent criticism is not really criticism, because it would be unreasonable to expect people to be critical in the presence of Krishna. But he says that it is actually a glorification of devotees. More appropriately, it's a glorification of the process of devotional service, the process of bhakti. So Vishwanath Chakravarti says that when various speakers put blame on various persons, it actually indicates that there is no fault in the devotees of the Lord, since their position are superior. So it's not a criticism of other people or processes. It is just a glorification of the devotees and the process of devotion. So this concludes the prayers. So in 22 verses, we saw that there were 19 personalities that offered prayers to Lord Vishnu. And with the exception of the Yogeshwaras, who spoke in 2 verses, and the Brahmanas, who spoke in 3 verses, everybody else spoke 1 verses. In these 19 personalities, there are 2 women. So one is the wife of Prajapati Daksha, Prasuti, and the other is the wives of the performers of the sacrifice. And there are 6 named personalities. Others are addressed collectively. That the Brahmanas spoke like this, even though Agni is understood to be, because there are several demigods in the category of Agni. But the 5 personalities that are named is Daksha, and he glorifies the Lord as beyond material perception. Indra as the protector from demons. Then Brahma and Bhrigu, 6 personalities. Brahma and Bhrigu, they glorify Krishna as beyond knowledge. Lord Shiva as the source of all benedictions and equanimity. And Prasuti as the Lord who makes everything complete. So Daksha and Indra, they are praying in the relationship to Karmakant. So in relationship to the material world. The Brahmanas and Bhrigu in relation to Gyan. Lord Shiva and Prasuti, they are in the category of Bhakti. And all the other personalities are in these 3 broad categories. That either glorifying karma, Gyan, or Bhakti. Okay. So I'm not sure if I have sent you the table yet, but there is this table that talks about each of these 19 personalities, the praise that they spoke, and the implied criticism. So if I haven't sent it, I'll send it to Prem Kishore Prabhu, and then he can forward it to all of you. So let me pause over here and see if there is any discussion.
Hare Krishna. I was just reflecting on this purport, the purport to text number 46. You were emphasizing it, but I've never, I have to say, never seen it so clearly. Anyone who engages in the worship of the deity or the form of the Lord in the temple is understood to be studying all the Vedas 24 hours a day. Simply by decorating the deities of the Lord Radha and Krishna in the temple, one very minutely studies the injunctions of the Vedas. It's a very, very strong statement. It's a comment I'm making, and I'm reflecting on the statement in the Bhagavad Gita, also in text number 70 of the last chapter, where Krishna says, I declare that he who studies this sacred conversation, means the Bhagavad Gita of ours, means the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, worships me by his intelligence. So it's like saying the same thing, that we and again I'm I was just reflecting also that I saw somewhere, I can't remember exactly where Prabhupada was saying that if one comes to the point of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra in full Krishna consciousness, it is understood that he has already studied, all the Vedas and has completed all kinds of sacrifices. Maybe I'm paraphrasing, maybe not the exact word, but it made that the goal of the Vedas and all sacrifices is to bring us to the point of Krishna consciousness, but chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. And again, that famous verse in the Bhagavad Gita, where it says that Vedanta Krit Veda Vedaischa Sarveda Ham Eva Vedya. Of all the Vedas, I am to be known. I am the knower. I am the compiler, whatever. So I'm just reflecting as a comment, how behind all the worship of the deity, the study of the Vedas, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, how there is so much implied behind all this. Just some reflections.
Thank you, Prabhu. I agree with you. It's very encouraging that there's so much mercy that two ways that according to our propensity, there are different paths and the paths are the same. So they give the same benefit. They have the same, they have the same compassion and mercy embedded within it. So when Prabhupada makes statements like the person who's cleaning the bathroom and the person who's on the altar worshipping the deities, they are the same, then these are the scriptural references that are supporting. He's not just saying it to encourage people or for neophytes to say that, this is how you can start. But he's actually saying in Vrindavan, there's a famous story, you've probably all heard it, that Prabhupada was once looking out of the window, and I think Shrutakirti was a servant at the time, and there was a woman who would carry water from the river to the temple, and she would do that every day as a service. And Prabhupada looked at her and commented that she does a service so nicely, she'll go back to Godhead. And then he was, I'm not sure if it was Shrutakirti, but let's assume he was. Shrutakirti Prabhu was surprised. He said, Prabhu, she doesn't, but Srila Prabhupada, not sure if she chants, not sure if she's following regulative principles. And Prabhupada said something to the effect, doesn't matter, she's sincere. So the paths are basically meant for us to manifest our sincerity according to our propensity. If we like to read, we read. If we like to clean, we clean. If we like to worship the deities, we worship the deities. They're all the same. So, like you, I also was able to draw a lot of a sense of protection that by following one path, you're not depriving yourself of the results of others.
I remember that past time you were saying about, it was in Radha Damodar Mandir while Prabhupada was staying there in his quarter. He used to observe this every day. Rupa Goswami's tomb was there, and then he had his quarters there. And Prabhupada, didn't fail to observe this every day. And then he made that statement about this. It was a widowed Mataji, elderly, and every day, she was going to the Ganga, to just bring water to take care of the deities. And exactly how you said it, Prabhupada mentioned. I was listening this morning to Radhisham, one of my mentor from Pune, and He made a very important point in this regard, that sometimes these things are inconceivable, to make how it happens, all this, it's just stated here, but what is the whole mechanics of it or whatever, when Prabhupada is making statement like this, and it's actually inconceivable. And then he gives two examples. He said, just like he was saying about a little boy who had some kind of defect in one of his toe, and he went to the doctor, and the doctor gave him a pill to drink. So he asked the doctor, shall I grind this pill and put it, on my toe, to heal the problem? And the doctor said, no, you drink it. And then the boy couldn't understand that the problem is with his toe, and then he's taking the pill in his mouth, but that's the inconceivable nature. It's like the ailment is way down there, and you're taking in your mouth, and it's going to fix it. So and then he gave another example, modern day example. He said that we just click on our email and then you receive it. How you receive it, we don't understand all the intricacies, all the details, but it happens. And then he was saying, he was making the comparison that we chant, the holy names, we worship the deity, and Krishna is reciprocating, he's receiving it, in the spiritual sky. But we might never be able to understand, specifically, how these things, happen. But it's all inconceivable and transcendental. But it's true, and it's fact.
I agree. Thank you for sharing, Prabhu. Anybody else? Any comments?
Just to add on this, even you say that even in neophyte devotees who simply engage in the worship, I mean, of course, me, neophyte, not even there, maybe lower than that. And, it's very encouraging to see that. And coming from Srila Prabhupada himself, that means we have some hope.
That was my realization too. Yeah, that we have some hope because we engage in a little bit of different things based on what works for us. Sometimes deity worships, and sometimes book distribution, sometimes prasadam. But it's not that we are all over the map, right? It doesn't mean that you're capricious. What it means is that all these processes are nourishing the same root, and they're nourished by the same source. So that gave me a lot of a sense of shelter there, because I know that's something that happens with me, that sometimes I get too involved in deity worship, sometimes in study of the scriptures, sometimes in prasadam, and then I feel that am I deviating? That am I doing this and not doing that, and am I losing interest? Of course, there is value in also staying, and staying true to a process and building upon it. But you're right. There is this sense of shelter that regardless of, as long as they're following one of the bona fide processes, the shelter is equally present there.
And also for our kids also. Sometimes we want them to be serious, but the kids are the kids, and they will do things as they want. But this also applies to them, as long as they do a little bit to whatever the capacities they can do. There's hope for them too.
Yeah. They have to find Krishna on their own terms. Just like we found on our own terms, they have to find Krishna on their own terms. We can give them opportunities. But I remember when my son was young, I was making him memorize the Bhagavad Gita because I was doing that. So I was making him memorize, and he as soon as he reached an age where he could say no to me, he said no to me. Yeah, but he's interested in kirtan and which most of the kids are, but that's his interest, and that's what my realization is, that everybody has to find Krishna on their own terms. We can give opportunities, can't impose. Okay. Somebody else had a point? They cut somebody off? Okay, moving on, verse 48. Maitrivacha iti dakshakaviryagyam Bhadrarudra bimarshitam Kirtimane rishikeshe Sananye yagya bhavane. Shri Maitreya said, after Lord Vishnu was glorified by all present, Daksha, his consciousness purified, arranged to begin again the yagya, which had been devastated by the followers of Shiva. So, we'll read about it later on. It's not that Lord Vishnu appeared before the yagya was performed, because it said that the oblations were being offered, but it means that he arranged for it to be continued, the yagya to be continued. So in the 7 verses, or in the 6 following verses, we will see the instructions by Lord Vishnu to Daksha. Verse 49, Bhagwan svena bhagena sarvatma sarva bhagavuk daksham babasa abhasya kriyamano ivangaha. Maitreya continued, my dear sinless Vidar, Lord Vishnu is actually the enjoyer of the results of all sacrifice. Yet because of his being the super soul of all living entities, he is satisfied simply with a share of the sacrificial offerings. He therefore addressed Daksha in a pleasing attitude. So Maitreya is saying that Krishna is complete. He is complete in all forms. So he is not in the want of anything. But he is also the enjoyer of the portions of the sacrifice. So there are 2 contradictory statements. That if one is complete, so if I have eaten to my satisfaction, then food will not interest me. I'm already satisfied with everything that I have eaten. My stomach is full, my taste is replete. And that is Krishna's position. He is fully satisfied. But then yet, he enjoys what is offered. So Maitreya resolves this apparent contradiction. He says, Priyamana iva. So iva means as if. So, as if pleased. I'm sorry. That's a different point. So the point that is made here is that the Lord is pleased to accept the sacrifices because of the mood of the person sacrificing it. So it's not that he is pleased by the oblations in themselves because he has no need for them, but he is pleased by the love and devotion of the person who's making those oblations. That is how this contradiction coexists. That the Lord is fully satisfied, yet he is pleased to receive the oblations because he is pleased by the mood of the person offering the sacrifice. So continuing with this thought, Maitreya says that here the Lord is Priyamana Iva. So if Maitreya wanted to say that the Lord was pleased, he could have said Priyamana, that the Lord was pleased here. But he uses the word Iva to indicate that Daksha, because of the contamination of Vaishnava Prad, is not getting the full mercy of the Lord. So that is why Priyamana Iva. That the Lord may appear to be, but he will never be really pleased with one who offends his devotees. And in order to make the same point in positive, Maitreya, he addresses Vidur as Anaga. So he says, on the other hand, the Lord is pleased with you because you are sinless, because you have not offended devotees, but not with Daksha, because he is infested with the sins of Vaishnava Aparadha. So Prabhupada writes in the purport that indirectly he indicated that he was not satisfied with Daksha trying to deny Lord Shiva's his share. Maitreya addressed Vidur as sinless because Vidur, as a pure Vaishnava, did not commit any offense. Okay, next verse 50. Now we'll see the Lord speaking. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Aham Brahma Cha Sarvascha Jagat Karanam Param Atmeshwar Upadrashta Swayantraga Visheshana. Lord Vishnu replied, Brahma, Lord Shiva, and I are the supreme cause of material manifestation. I am the super soul, the self-sufficient witness. But impersonally, there is no difference between Brahma and Lord Shiva and me. So in 5 verses, from 50 to 54, the point is made that only ignorant people see the Devas as independent or separate from Lord Vishnu. So we see, and the Lord, of course, speaks. He speaks very eloquently, but he also speaks in riddles. So here, he's essentially chastising Daksha. He's saying that there's no difference between me and Lord Shiva. So you're a fool to think that by denying Lord Shiva the oblations, you could please me. Or you're a fool to think that if you're offering me oblations, Lord Shiva is being denied his oblations. Because we are the same. Now, Daksha has also realized it. So essentially, this is a cautioning note that do not commit this offense again. Do not develop this divisive mentality. So, in the verse, the Lord, he attributes 5 qualities to himself. He says, I am Swayam Draka. I am self-revealing. He says, I am Param Jagata Karanam, the supreme cause of the material world. Atma Ishvara. I am super soul, Upadrashta. I am the witness. And Aham Brahmacha Sarvascha Aveshana. That I, Brahma, and Shiv are non-different from one another. And of course, if we had more time, we could go into each of these 5 aspects and understand how the Lord is describing himself in the present context. It is also a response to all the prayers that were spoken to the Lord. He says that I am everywhere. Then the question would be, then why can't people see you? He says, Swayam Drak. I cannot be seen unless I reveal myself. So even though I am Atma Ishvara, that I am present in everybody as the super soul. I am Updrashta. I am witnessing everything that is going on, but still people cannot see me. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives 6 quotes proving that Lord Vishnu is the origin of everything. So he quotes Shankaracharya, Narayana Paraha, that Lord Narayana is the origin of Brahma, Shiva, and everybody else. Then he quotes from Bhagavatam, Tene Brahma Hridayadi. This is the very first verse in the Brahman, in the Bhagavatam, that Brahma is actually educated by the Lord himself. Then he quotes Bhagavad Gita 10.2, Aham Adirhi Devana, that I am the origin of all the Devas. Then 10.8, that Aham Sarvasya Prabha, one of the core verses, the Chatushloki, that I am the cause of all, Aham Sarvasya Prabha, Matata Sarvam Pravartate, that I am the cause of everything. Then he quotes the Prabhupada quotes Vedanta Sutra, then Mahadiya Seyada. This is the second verse in the Vedanta Sutra, which is also the first verse in the Bhagavatam. That's why they say that the Bhagavatam is a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. And then the 6th quote he gives from the Upanishad, Yato va imami bhutani jayate. Everything is generated from Lord Vishnu, everything is maintained by him, and everything is annihilated by his energy. So Prabhupada uses this opportunity to also give us a lot of scriptural references about the possession of Lord Vishnu. So the point that Lord Vishnu is making here, that if I am the origin of everything, then why are you making differences between Lord Shiva and me? Okay, so as I had mentioned earlier on, that even though Lord Vishnu appears in response to the oblation offered by Daksha, he is not appearing in a benedictory mode. So we will see in the verses that he will continue to chastise Daksha. And it's not just chastisement. We also see that Daksha doesn't really get the benefit of personal association with the Lord. He does not get that purification that Kardam Muni and others get. Okay, verse 51. Atmamayam samavishya sam gunamayim dvaja srajan rakshan haran vishwam dadre samgyam kriyochita. The Lord continued, my dear Daksha Dvija, I am the original personality of Godhead. But in order to create, maintain, and annihilate this cosmic manifestation, I act through my material energy. And according to the different grades of activity, my representations are differently named. So in response to the previous verse, Daksha may object that the Supreme Lord is only one person, and according to the scriptures, that is you. So then why are you saying that Lord Shiva is not different from you? Actually, not Lord Shiva is different from you, because you are the Supreme Lord and he is not. So Lord Vishnu, he agrees to the premise that he says that person who is situated in the material world but is famous for being beyond the gunas is I alone. Right? Here he is using the singular pronoun. That only me. So there is no one like me. I am unique. So I am the Supreme Lord. But then he modifies it and says that according to the activity of creation, maintenance, and destruction, says Srajan Rakshan, Haran Vishwam, I take the names of creator, maintainer, and destroyer. Tadre Samgyam kriyochitam. So essentially the Lord is chastising Daksha for limiting the opulences of the Lord. So what Daksha is doing is that is superimposing his own limitations on the Lord. So we think that if we are this one person, we cannot be another person. For us, it is true. It's not true for the Lord. The Lord can be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he can partially manifest himself through Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma also. So this is a further chastisement of Daksha. That if you are if you think that I am limited by my singularity, you are mistaken. My opulences are such that I can empower my abilities in others, and therefore Lord Shiva should have been respected. Okay, verse 52. Tasmin brahmne advityeje kevale paramatmani brahmarudra cha bhutani vede agya nupashyati. The Lord continued, one who is not in proper knowledge thinks that demigods like Brahma and Shiva are independent, or he even thinks that the living entities are independent. So Daksha may continue to object that how are Brahma, who is a jiva, and Shiva, who is touched by the modes, how can they be non-different from you? So even though I accept that you have unlimited potencies, but still, how can we accept the fact that a jiva like Brahma or Shiva, who is tamaso, how can they be considered as, because non-different goes both ways. If Krishna is non-different from Shiva, Shiva is non-different from Krishna. So he's now saying, how can I accept that Shiva is non-different from you? So the Lord explains through, again, Kaimutya Nyaya. He is saying that Daksha, what to speak of Brahma and Shiva? Even the jivas are non-different from me. Right? So he says that he even thinks that the living entities are independent. One who is not in proper knowledge. Because even the jivas are my tathastha shakti. Brahma and Shiva are my guna avatars. So certainly they can be considered non-different from me. So Prabhupada in his purport, he explains that this non-difference can be understood from the perspective that the same Lord is present in all of them as super soul. Right? Because when Krishna is saying that the jivas are non-different from me, then the Mayavadis would say we always thought so. That the jivas are non-different, so the jivas are Krishna, so everybody is God. So Prabhupada explains that the non-difference that the Lord is speaking over here, so he says the living entities including Brahma, are not independently separated but are counted within the marginal potency of the Supreme Lord. So that is the first point of non-difference. That because there is no difference between the energetic and the energy, and because Krishna is the source of the energy, the tathastha shakti, and the jivas are situated in Krishna's marginal energy, they can be considered as non-different. Second point is that the Lord being the super soul, in every living entity, including Brahma and Shiva. Shiva is directing everyone's in the activities of the material modes of nature. No one can act independently. Therefore, indirectly, no one is different from the Supreme Lord. Certainly not Brahma and Rudra, who are incarnation of the material modes of passion and ignorance. So, these are a little bit tricky verses, because typically speaking, scriptures like the Bhagavatam and the Gita, they go to great lengths to show that the Lord is different. They want to debunk the impersonalist conception that they are all the same. But here, the Lord is speaking to make a very important point about why everyone should be respected, because of their relationship with the Lord. So the context is important here, because the message that Krishna wants to give, Lord Vishnu wants to give, that everybody should be respected, because all of them are connected to Krishna. What to speak of Lord Shiva, who is more so connected by the fact that he is a Guna avatar. Okay, we'll do one more verse and then pause for any discussion. Yatha pumana swangeshu shirapanyadisho kvachit pakre buddhim kurute evam bhuteshu matparaha. A person with average intelligence does not think the head and other parts of the body to be separate. Similarly, my devotees does not differentiate Vishnu, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, from anything or any living entity. So the same point that was made in the previous verse is explained through an analogy over here, that a person will not make distinction in the body parts, Shira, Pani, Adishu, between the head and the hands and the other parts of the body, because they're all physically connected to each other. So the sameness is also explained from a subtle level. So for example, the devotee of a Lord does not see the difference between himself and all living entities. This is because of the unity of interest. So the devotee of the Lord is happy when others are happy. And when the others are in distress, the devotee is in distress. So there is the ekatvam bhavam, that there is the unity in interest. So Prabhupada says that similarly, a devotee's oneness is manifested in his compassion for all conditioned souls. So similarly, considering these two aspects, one can see that there is no difference between Vishnu and Shiva and Brahma, because they are unified in interest and they are connected to each other in service. So Brahma and Shiva, they appear in the body of Lord Vishnu, so they're connected, and their interest is the interest of Lord Vishnu. Whatever Lord Vishnu wants, Brahma and Shiva does. Lord Vishnu wants the creation of the material universe, Lord Brahma creates it. He desires the destruction, Lord Shiva destroys it. So ekatva bhavam, they have the same interest. So from that perspective, Lord Vishnu is saying that we are the same. Okay. So I'll pause over here and see if you have any comments or discussion.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, just one comment. It cannot be applied to us too, and even though the offense says that we should not consider Lord Vishnu and the demigod as are the same, but they're not the same. But we have to respect them as well. It doesn't mean that we have to put them on one side and then don't give them any respect, which happens sometimes. Some devotees, when they become devotees, they tend to, I won't say criticize, but they put the demigod on a different level, but maybe they're better than us. It can be a warning for us too.
It is, and actually we will discuss this in some details in next verses. That actually in the Nectar Devotion it is mentioned, right? That it is an offense to Lord Vishnu to disrespect the demigods. So we'll see this in a little bit more details, what you have summarized, that this is actually a cautionary note for us also, that while we should not see the devas at the same level as Lord Vishnu, we should not disrespect them also. And of course, then it extends to everybody, that we should have the samdrishti, that we should not distinguish between the jivas also. Then when a devotee is sufficiently advanced, then they will be inclined to offer all respects to all living entities, regardless of their position, because of the connection with Krishna.
This is one of the qualifications of an Uttama-adhikari, no?
When they become, yes, and as they become more and more advanced, then this divisiveness, it goes down. Ultimately, it goes away. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are no more comments, we'll end over here. Vanchakalpatarubhayascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nithai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.